Hi, my name is Tony Davis, and I'm going to walk you through how to recreate my independent study project that I completed this fall. So, this project is collecting geospatial data as well as foot traffic data and putting it in a Postgres database that's easily updatable. So, for your system requirements, you'll want to make sure that you have Python 3.11 as well as the latest version of Postgres SQL. You're also going to need these Python libraries as well. And just some quick recommendations. I highly recommend using pgadmin 4, especially if you're new to databases, because it makes the entire process really easy for you because it's a user interface that allows you to create, manage, and edit all of your databases. So it's a really nice tool to visualize, and it also has some tools to help make it easier to understand everything that you need to know. For the data itself, it's broken up into 3 tables. You can also read more in detail about this on my GitHub repository. But we do have 3 tables. We have the brand table, location, and traffic tables. You can also see the sample CSVs for these brands here. In this video, though, we are going to be focusing on how to get everything set up, and I'm going to walk you through that step by step. So the first step we're going to have is setting up the database. The first thing you're going to need is the create SQL file. You can find this in the GitHub repository, but it will also be linked right after this video. So you'll want to make sure you put this in an easy to find area. I recommend your bin file, which if you can see down a little bit further, we're going to be using that in the future, and I'll explain why when we're going through there. But you're going to want to make sure you have this file on your machine. Then you're going to want to make sure you have your Postgres SQL set up. Whenever you're setting this up onto your system, it should have you set up a password as well as a super user for your server that the database is stored on. So you're going to want to make sure that you take note of what your super user is as well as your password for Postgres SQL for your system. Then we're going to want to open up command prompt or the command prompt terminal. So basically to find that, you'll just go to your settings button or your search button down here or the little Windows key. And you're going to type in command prompt. And for me, I'm going to hit run as administrator. So for me, my system requires it. Your system may not. I always recommend trying without running as administrator first. And then if it's giving you any trouble, then run as administrator. But then we're going to want to make sure we go to the file path that is the Postgres SQL bin file. So you're just going to type in CD and then you're going to paste this in. You want to make sure that this is the path for your specific file. And the way you can see that is by going to your file folder that you have all of your Postgres SQL stored. Most of the time it'll be in your OS and then your program files, and then you'll see a Postgres SQL folder. It'll have one folder in it. You just go one more step further, and then you can click on the bin folder, and then you'll right click and copy as path. And you can just paste that straight into your command prompt and it'll take you to that bin folder. Once you're there, we're going to be going through to create the database. So we can easily create the database by using this command here. You'll just paste that in and then replace your username. So your super username, you're going to want to place there. And it's pretty nice and easy. Once you hit that, it'll prompt you for your password. For this example, I did not change my super username just because I don't want to overwrite my current project. So I'm going to error it out, but it will ask you for your password. Once you put in your password correctly, it'll create that database for you. So if the password is incorrect, you'll receive this error as well. So once you have the database created, we're not quite done yet. Then we will need to run this command here. So this is where it's important to save your create SQL file in a spot that you'll remember. So you'll again change your super username, and then you're going to want to change your file path. Now your file path is going to be where you saved your create SQL file. Um, a fun little trick is if you save it in your bin file, you can actually just call it by name. So if you put create SQL inside of that file folder, you can just copy this, paste it in, and find it. Um, Otherwise, you can again click on it, right click, copy the path, and just go again. You'll want to make sure that you erase the other part. But once you hit enter on there, it'll complete the process for you. And so that'll add those tables in as well as the columns and your primary keys, all of the structure that you need for the database. You can then run /L to test the database to make sure it was added and set up. Or you can use pgadmin4 if you are wanting, and it will look like this. And then all you have to do is hit the little server button and then hit refresh, and it'll show you all of your databases that you have on your machine. And then you can check your tables. And you'll be able to see all of your columns. Now, right now we haven't added any values, but we're going to be fixing that right now. So we do have two options. So if you don't have a Dewey data account, you can still utilize this database and play around with it with some sample CSVs. So these are made up of the first 100 rows of my database table that I created. So you can download these 3 CSV files and then use the sample insert Python script. So for this Python script, all you have to do is change your username and your password again, and then you'll change your file path for each of the tables. So you'll want to make sure you read the header carefully when you put in your CSV file path. And again, that'll be going to your File Explorer and right-clicking on the CSV file itself and copying the path. When you do that, it will automatically read each row into the database for you. If you do have a Dewey data account, then you can utilize our 3 upload Python scripts. So for this, you will need a Dewey data account, and you'll need to be able to set up your API key as well as your product key. So you can follow this tutorial here. It's very helpful. It's from Dewey directly, but it walks you through how to create the API as well as the product path. It also walks you through just downloading the files directly onto your machine. And I also do reference this tutorial in my code as well. So very helpful tutorials on how to get these 2 keys. But once you have these 2 copied down and saved, then we can go into our Python scripts. Now, these 3 are very similar. You're going to be changing the exact same things in all of them. So for the database, you're going to be changing your super user again and your password, and then your API key. Now, this whole section, you can copy and paste on all 3 of them. These will be the exact same. You will want to make sure you put the correct product key or the correct product link here, as that's going to be which files get pulled. And each of these will do the file pulls and the inserts. So you want to just make sure you have that correct product. Now for each of these, it'll collect the results, saving that as a JSON file, and then it'll read each of these results and then save the CSVs. And so we're going to be downloading the file itself onto our machine, and then we're going to unzip the file and then read it into the database. And then we're going to actually delete the file from our machine because it's no longer needed once we have that data in the database. Now, all of the upload files do all of this. And so all of them do the exact same process, just with the different tables. And the product URLs you're going to need are going to be the global places POI and geometry, the and the brand info from SafeGraph, and then the weekly patterns and foot traffic from AdVan. And those you can find on the Dewey Data homepage. You just have to look for SafeGraph, and then you can find those too. And you would just subscribe to those to get that product key that you need, or the product key that's down here. And then once you have all of that completed, you'll have a database that looks somewhat like this. If you're using the PG Admin 4, this is how they set up their user interface to be able to look at all of the data. So this is just showing the first 100 rows, but it does hold the rest of the data as well. And then you'll be able to look at that with like your brands, and with PGMN4, this is how you'll view like all of your data. And then you can examine your data from there. And then with PGMN4, you can also use their query tool to build queries. It'll also give you scripts so you can do like a select script and modify those queries with this as well. So it's really helpful, especially if you're new to databases. So I highly recommend. But I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope it was helpful. If you do have any questions or suggestions, you can always reach out to me at tonydbusiness@gmail.com. I always love getting feedback, and I'm happy to help if there's any questions about my work. But I hope you have a great rest of your night.